Hi, Paul. Guess who this is? This is the woman who kept saying to you, you're not ready for your international development just yet. You're not ready. You might be ready. You're not fully ready. To the woman who's sitting here today in front of you and is saying, well done. As I said once before, I am very proud of your compassion, because to me, seriously, that seems to be one of the most important key factor to your success. To any consultant, any decent consultant that I know, nothing is more fulfilling and more rewarding than to actually see one of her clients achieve their dream, their objectives, and their goal. So all I wanted to say to you was thank you so much for allowing me to experience one of the most important achievements in my career, which is traveling alongside you and to be part of your success.
We got to the point where we had gone from 4 to 14 in a year. That year, from going from 4 to 14, was bonkers.
Was that 2000 and?
So we would have been 2005.
All right.
So no, started at 2004. Yeah, onwards. So that
4 into 5. Yeah.
That was mad. So I was getting all these phone calls. Can you be I'm interested in being a franchisee. So. And I'm doing the whole process. So I'm on taking them on. I'm having the initial phone calls. I'm having the early meetings. I'm onboarding. I'm training. I'm still running a swim school. And there's 10 of these, and they're national. I mean, I look back at it now and go, how did we do that?
Yeah.
Completely impossible. As I said, I'd hired Janice, and I'll come back to Janice later in the story. But Janice, our first administrator. And I brought her in just to help me to run the Yorkshire Swim School, so to kind of free up a bit of my time, I thought. She was amazing. Janice was absolutely amazing. But she ran around the country with me and started helping me to train people with the admin process and stuff, because we were also building the admin systems. I mean, our first admin systems was just a load of spreadsheets. Our booking sheet was just a load of spreadsheets with names on it. That was our booking. No CRM system, all colour-coded. Take the money, turn green to orange. It was mental. So running around like an absolute loon, trying to keep all these spinning plates going, and training everybody. And our training is really thorough, and it's got ever more sophisticated going on. And not just the business training, but of course the swimming training, because everybody had to be a trained swimming teacher, and I was the only person that could do that. So I was tutoring all of these franchisees plus their teachers that they were recruiting. I was doing all of that. So we ran a training course at least once every month. 10 people would come in it, and I would do that.
Yeah.
And I'd be in the pool for a week. It just built this really unique family. It wasn't planned to do that, but it just did. Everyone had this experience together that was really quite unique. And I'd go and train them, and I'd sleep in there on their sofas in their bedrooms. I'd bounce their kids on my knee. It was just real, they'd do the same. They'd come down, they'd put my kids to bed. Farah, literally that, lived and breathed that. So it was a family, and we celebrated everyone's first 100 clients, 200 clients,
Bill had obviously come in as the franchising centre and given you some help in those early stages. Did you then, you took that and obviously ran with it, and there was a certain amount, a lot of organic growth. Did you keep in touch with Bill? Like how was there any, or was it he kind of done things and moved on?
He pretty well did things and moved on, but for the first period after, there was communication. Do I do that, Bill? No, I do that bit of hand holding, but no, pretty much moved on, and we just got on with it. But Bill had set us up brilliantly. I mean, not well, brilliantly. Yeah. And I think Farah knows this about me. If Bill told me to turn left, I was like, I'll turn left. I don't know what I'm doing. So great. So we literally followed everything. Yeah. We're not idiots. We challenged a couple of things. Are you sure about that? Sort of stuff. But absolutely, that's the system. That's how you do it. Some of the detail that Bill went to, which I laugh about now, he was completely right at the time. This is again how times have changed. He went, make sure that people, when they fill in your questionnaire, that they handwrite it, because that will tell you quite a bit about them. Are they neat? Are they not neat? can they spell, blah, 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 all these old-fashioned values.
They take care with,
And then the other thing he said to me, and it was true, so many times questionnaires would come in, and you'd form in sounds really bad, but you go, oh, that person might be a bit like that. And they probably were. Good or bad, And the other thing he said to me was, absolutely go around to their house and see them in situ as part of your recruitment process very early on, because you'll see what they're like. I think he got our family thing. But he said, it's going to sound a bit weird, this advice, but go to their house. And 100% true as well that was. We used to go to some people's houses, and some of the things we saw were like, really? Equally, it's like, wow, they're like us or whatever. So there were some of those old-fashioned values, which we don't do anymore because you just can't, the world's moved on. But so there were some nuanced, silly things you could say, but actually they weren't like that. So the next bit of the story is the international bit. So it was 2007. So we've been going 5 years at this point.
Right.
And in 2007, something called the World Aquatic Baby Conference was taking place. And every 2 years, there used to be a conference of all the people that did baby swimming around the world used to get together. And it'd been going for many, many years. And we decided we would go in 2007. So we're 5 years old. We decided to give it a go. And the main reason we wanted to go was to benchmark ourselves. And actually, we were pretty scared about going because we just had our head down doing our thing. But were we any good? Were our techniques on point? Were we as professional as we know? How were we? We didn't really know. So we're quite nervous. We thought we'd better go and find out. So the conference was taking place in New Zealand. Just before we went, this organisation had a row. There was going to be a breakaway conference again 5 weeks later in Florida. So we thought, well, better go to both, really. So backpacks on, off we went to New Zealand. New Zealand was the main one. It was in Wellington. There's a big museum on Wellington seafront. It was amazing. They got the government to sponsor. We had a big hacker opening. So it was just phenomenal, amazing. So we walk into this conference hall. Typical Brits, scurry to the back of the hall, head down. Packed. Just thousands of people from all over the world, the swimming industry, all over the world. And we're sitting there, nervous. Are we any good, kind of thing. And then do all the opening speeches. And then the first major speaker stands up as a guy, actually called Bill, American called Bill, ran a swim school in USA. And he's talking about the size of facilities and operations around the world. And he said something really innocuous. And Jess and I looked at each other and went, bloody hell, we're the biggest baby swim school in the world. And at that time, we were teaching 10,000 clients a week. And the next biggest, depending on how you count it, was about 3,000.
Really?
We had no idea, not a Scooby-Doo. We didn't stand up and go, we're the biggest in the world. We spent the next 3 days going around the halls and meeting people. Yeah, we do a bit of swimming back at home. What do you do?
You were feeling a bit more like you.
You fit it in. But still very humble. And anyway, so we got to meet the industry, and we were good. We could pat ourselves on the back. We were like, we were doing all right. And we met everybody and got to know the industry. There's a bit you might not remember actually, because there's another fantastic bit that Farah did when you said you're not ready before we went to Ireland. And you asked me, as part of that whole, where would you like to go? And I went, I'd like to go to America. And I'd love to go back to Australia and do that properly. And there was a moment you went, those are the two hardest places you could possibly...
Absolutely.
Here's your learning curve on that. You're not doing that. And going back to the phone going off, Farah said, if you go international when you're ready, the first place you need to go to is Ireland, because you need to go and cut your teeth somewhere where it's closer safe and close to home, and all of that advice. And I was like, Ireland, okay. But and that's why Farah finished that, and we ended up going to Ireland because the phone went off. Because Farah said you're not ready, so I wasn't actively looking to go to Ireland because I was told I wasn't ready, so I wasn't actively looking.
But if you are going to go,
But when the phone went off, and because we'd had Farah had given me a tick sheet of stuff, and we'd ploughed our way through this, and we thought, well, we'll probably give that a go.
There is a template there behind kind of the nuances of different businesses, different business owners and people, essentially, and we're trying to help business owners make the right decisions.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And what I want to ask you, because it's really interesting, is you are an entrepreneur, absolutely, and a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, they don't listen to advice very well. Mm-hmm. Why not just ignore and say, do you know what, they're just a consultant. Yeah. They're just an advisor. Why should I listen to them? I just want to.
I'd like to add just one little bit to that, and that is, well, I listen to advice in the UK. How different is it to go to international? Must be pretty much the same. Launch it in Doncaster, I'll be able to do it in New Delhi the same way.
I was just always very conscious that you can't know it all. So what do you bring to the party as an entrepreneur? As an entrepreneur, you've got the idea, you've got the vision, and you've got this crazy drive probably. You know, you're not going to take no for an answer, and all those classic things, you're going to go for it. That's great. So that you're the momentum person. But there's going to be a whole raft of things you don't know anything about. I'm not a marketeer. I'm not a franchise professional. I'm not an international franchise professional. I'm not a finance professional. I don't know these things. But I've always had the wit, I think, to know that if I want to excel in the main activity, which for me was water babies, baby swimming business, I want the best people in those positions. I want them all to be better than me in those positions. And I'm going to listen to them. I've got no problem. You tell me how to do it. You know, you're head of marketing, you tell me how to do it. If you're a franchising consultant, you tell me how to do it. I'm not an idiot. I'll challenge things, and I'll, you know, and because you're an entrepreneur, you tend to be a bit wacky, don't you? So you went, well, okay, everyone's done it that way. Can we do it this way? But that's as far as that goes. So I've always just been built that way. So Farah said something else to me as well, which you haven't said, which I think I could probably say, which is the cost, money. I think a lot of reasons why franchising, why franchisors don't listen to franchise consultants or don't go all the way with them is a money thing. They'll go, well, that's a bit of an expensive service. I'll go and do it. Or I can take some of that advice and I'll save some money if I go and give it a go over here. Wrong. And you actually said that to me. You probably don't remember it very early on. I'm going to ad-lib a bit, but basically what you said to me, this is going to cost you money. And I was like, okay.
And I think one of the points I made was, if you think this is expensive, try to do it without the advice.
Absolutely, and that is the bit. So, which is the bit of advice I give everybody else. And ironically, franchising, it's really ironic, isn't it? Because as a franchisor, if you put a load of franchisors in a room and go, what is your number one problem? All of them, regardless of their brand, will go, getting my franchisees to follow the system. Yeah. They'll all give out about it. Yeah. So if you then get a consultant telling you what to do in an area that you're trying to circumvent that, why? You know it's stupid for your franchisees to do it with you. So isn't it stupid for you to do it with the people you're getting in to consult you? So I think if you adopt two attitudes, one, be open-minded, well, three, be open-minded, follow the advice and pay what it costs to do it properly. That goes back to what I said right at the beginning. What is the professional approach? Where are the best people? That may cost you. If you do those things, you're going to make that money back hand over fist. You're going to save money hand over fist. In the last few years, there's been a real growth in consultancy companies, business consultancy adding on, franchising as a consultancy, part of their sector and so on. So there's been a whole load of that. And that can be really confusing for a business owner who is thinking about growth. And franchising maybe is part of a strategy, or could be part of a strategy. Using someone for a period of time, like you worked with Bill for 6 months. It was a period of time which helped you shape your business. How would you go about making sure? When I think about us at the beginning, finding Bill, there was a lot of luck in that. So, but there wasn't. So the first thing, and this is probably where I go with this in franchising, is speak to the BFA in the first instance. Because the BFA know the industry. They have lots of approved advisors. They'll be able to advise you, given your brand and where you are in your journey, as to who might best suit you, and certainly give you 3 or 4. So if you know nothing about it and you're a new franchisor out there, I'd say get in touch with the BFA, become a member, get in touch with the BFA. And I am kind of hard selling the BFA, because do that, get into the industry, get in touch with them, and get some approved go for some of the approved advisors. That's one approach. And definitely meet a few. Don't just meet one. I got in touch with the BFA. They said, come along to the exhibition. I walked around the hall with the intent of meeting consultants. I met lots of consultants, all very short conversations, but I spoke to lots. The other thing is speak to other people who've used them, go and shop around. So it's no difference to choosing your dentist or anything else. Do some research and see a number. Get the one that you're comfortable with. And I think there's an ecosystem out there that can help you to do that. And certain consultants, I think, will suit certain franchise businesses at a certain time in their journey, given their size and all the rest of it.
You had a few knockbacks, as in you're not ready. You're not ready.
Yeah.
You were listening. You were putting processes in place.
Yeah.
You were building the business, putting infrastructure and people in place.
Yeah. For the international side, yes.
For the international side.
Yeah, because Farah said, and this has also resonated, and something I've said to other people as well, was to dominate your own market first. And one of the reasons you said you're not ready yet is actually you've still got a long way to go in your own market. And why go international? You know, go up the road.
Yeah.
So that was very true. So the whole building the company bit was all of that. And it's quite interesting. I forgot what you said there, because once you came to the house and it was one man and a ferret. And the next time you come to this, you know, sexy
incredible
office. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
It was an old cinema that we converted.
Where was that office?
That was in Honiton.
Oh, that was Honiton. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So moved down.
Moved from Exeter to Honiton.
And
got this old cinema. And so and obviously we just got a whole ecosystem in to support the network in the UK. Yeah. So Farah could see that we were dominant in the UK.
Yeah.
We were supporting our network properly in the UK. There's a team of people running the UK. Because the other thing you said to me is the person that needs to drive international is going to be you, Paul. You know, you're the person that's going to have to be the person that. So are you backfilled? And I've got a chief executive and Steve and all of those things. So we just, you just get to the point when you are ready. I think the third time, if Farah said no, I think I would have hit her at that point. How ready do you need to be? But the other bit that Farah said as well was on the journey was the strategy bit was really good, because as Farah said, she took me around to meet people. But where we got to very quickly, remember Farah, so we had Canada as a stepping stone to America, as you said, Germany into Europe, and to prove water babies in a non-English speaking country for the first time. The Netherlands, your words to me were it's a quick win. It's very similar to the UK, so the Netherlands.
And smaller European market.
And New Zealand as a stepping stone to Australia.
Yeah.
And we gave ourselves 2 years to get into 2 of those 4 countries, and us being us got into all of them in less than 2 years. With varying success. But the point there is, as Farah said, we had a proper strategy. Because the other thing that you rammed home to me was, do not go scattergun. No. Do not just go for the first one that tells you it's a good idea because it sounds exciting, like you did with Australia. Be really specific and really targeted. By the time we'd started this strategy and started to get traction going into Canada and getting those up and running, that's when China came to us, which was completely out of left field. But that goes to the entrepreneurial bit. So yeah. But the point was, and what I would say to people is that we could take on the punt because we'd got the infrastructure, we'd learned how to do it, we knew what we were doing, we knew what good looked like, we knew what bad looked like. And in those instances, and if I'd brought Farah and said, we're in this situation now, and this opportunity had come from China, what do you think? You absolutely would have said, don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I didn't have to get her in to tell me that.
No. In fact, I never got the call.
If Italy had come, you're probably going to do it, but China, you're probably going, you're mad, so don't do it. So I've got to tell you this story. This bit's funny then. So Farah's always been in the back of my head with this international stuff. So I've got all these inquiries from China, and I'm like, China sounds exciting, but I'm concentrating on what we're doing here. That's my focus. So I'm not doing it. So I used to say no to these inquiries, and then I finally loads of these inquiries they get coming.
Yeah,
and we didn't know why. They was coming and coming. And then just one Christmas, got yet another inquiry. This 2016-ish, I think it was. And it was 10 days before Christmas from Shanghai, a consultancy in Shanghai, going, you've got to bring water babies to China, it'd be amazing. This was like the 10th. So being a backpacker, a traveller, Christmas, we close at Christmas at water babies. And I was like, I've never been to China. I've always wanted to go. So, and he just literally got me at the right point, at the right moment on the phone in the office. And I went, okay, I'll come and see you. And it was like, oh, really great. When come in the new year, March, April. No, I'll come next week. He was like, oh, okay. So jumped to the plane, went to Shanghai. And the time it took me to get from Shanghai airport into the centre of China, I was like, there's no way water babies is coming here. I don't even have to pick up the phone to Farah. This is impossible, not happening. Yeah. So I had a great 3 or 4 days in Shanghai, fantastic city. Came back home and okay, scratch that itch. No way. No, it's far too complicated. We're not doing that. So many brands have failed. Can't do it. So, but these phone calls kept coming, going to the new year, kept coming and coming and coming. And then, but there's all no. And then eventually, one of our clients got in touch, a client from North London, Hertfordshire, and her name was Jin. And Jin rang me and said, I'm from Xi'an, centre of China. Are you interested in taking water babies to China? And I was like, thanks, but no thanks. No, we're not. And she wouldn't take no for an answer, and I couldn't shake her. And I couldn't be rude to her because she was, not rude anyway, but I couldn't shake her because she was a client. And she just wouldn't let go. And a proper entrepreneur would not take no for an answer. So I eventually went, oh, come and see me then, thinking that'll put her off to come all the way down to Devon. And for some bizarre reason, I've got 40 minutes window, like next week. Don't know where that came from. Anyway, she went, that's great, I need half an hour. So she drove down from London with her husband and came into our office, which is a big open plan office. And everyone at Water Babies always used to worry about, what's this mad Paul going to do next? So this Chinese couple walk in and they sit down and I ushered them upstairs to our meeting room. I remember turning around to the office, which was pretty busy that day, and went, don't worry everybody, we're not going to China. I'm just, being polite, I'm going to get rid of them. So I go upstairs for my 30-minute meeting, which basically ends up being half a day. And I'm sitting at the table and I go, look, I'm a Chinese expert because I have been to China for 3 days. I know all about China. And I know that you cannot go and hire swimming pools in China. In fact, people that run swimming businesses in China have these amazing aquatic centres. And they go, yes, Paul, we are Chinese. We do know that. I go, okay. Well, I don't know, to build an aquatic centre in China, I don't know, what's that, £500,000? Yeah, have you got £500,000? Yeah, actually we do. Oh, do you? Yeah. So then I went, well, I'm also a property expert, and I know you can't just walk down the road and rent a building in China. Everything's owned by the state, and it's not that easy. I went, yes, Paul, we are Chinese again. We know how it works. My father works for the biggest construction company in Shanghai, government company, and it's actually this building, or this building. They had the buildings. So I burst out laughing at that point and went, so if I was looking to go to China, I'd be looking for 2 people like you, speak English, Western educated, been Water Babies clients, got the money and the contacts in China, like a dream ticket.
And no buildings.
And yes, you're like my dream ticket. And but I went, now you're asking me, it's got that fire in the back of my head, now you're asking me to go to the most complicated marketplace in the world, second biggest economy in the world. I can't even read a road sign. I've done nothing that I'm supposed to do as a franchisor. In fact, somebody else has got the name Water Babies over there. That had already been taken. They didn't have the brand name Water Babies. I've done nothing that I'm supposed to. It took me a year to get to Ireland. So you're asking me to take on the most complicated market, arguably, in the world. It would be an absolute textbook exercise in how not to do franchising, let alone international franchising. The chances of something like that working would be less than 10%. Let's give it a go.
Did you have a little note saying, do not call Farah?
Yeah.
100%.
Farah probably will have a coronary, yes.
I'll phone Farah when this is over.
I did notice that it was kept very hush-hush.
It was kept very hush-hush, it was. Because it was bonkers. And, but what was good about it, going back to being straight with people, it wasn't me as a franchisor. I was looking at this couple, being responsible to people, not going, this is going to work. Yeah. It was completely opposite, going, the chance of this is minuscule. And if you're prepared to give that a go, we'll give it a go.
It's a shared risk.
It's a shared risk, but we will absolutely put 100% into it. Yeah. But the chances are, and they're super entrepreneurial, they were like, sounds like a laugh, let's give it a go. And what nobody believes, but it's absolutely true, almost to the day, 1 year later, I was standing outside their purpose-built aquatic centre at the opening centre in Xi'an.
Yeah, very good.
I mean, off the chart, unbelievable. We called ourselves Aqua Babies. Well, that for serendipity.
Yeah.
And then we had a whole thing about, then we managed to secure a master. It's just a whole story. And what we realised was, because the reason the phone was going off the hook is that the Chinese government, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to do these sort of 4-year projects. They get them on telly and the whole of the Politburo gets together and they decide what the next thing is going to be for the country. And for some reason, they, as a nation, had decided that they were going to invest in children's education. So every other person on the Chinese street corner is an entrepreneur. So we had all these entrepreneurs ringing all over the world trying to find Western education brands to take it. That's why our phone was going nuts. Yeah. And now we were listening. Yeah. We weren't saying no. And we knew that we had to get a master because there's no way we could run a direct franchise and run our network. Impossible. So we had to sell the master rights. And we thought that, how are we going to find somebody who loves swimming who's also going to have pockets deep enough to take on the whole of China? Because we also learned very quickly that you'd have to sell the whole of China. You couldn't have area developers because the country just doesn't work that way for all sorts of other reasons. Yeah. All these learnings. And can cut a long story short, we had what we thought was going to be impossible. We gave ourselves, we thought this could take 5 years and probably never happen. We actually had 3 organisations that wanted to do it, and we ended up choosing one of those and signed on the dotted line one Christmas around 2018 or something like that, 17. I have to remember it exactly. And yeah, the biggest deal we'd ever done. We'd sold the right. That was a big check. We'd sold the rights to China. Yeah. For them to roll out a network of centres, and it went gangbusters at the beginning, and then COVID hit, and it all came to an end, unfortunately. Or we've got one left now because our master's actually just finished in China, because the Chinese government also changed the rule. They changed the rules around children's education. They didn't want to do it anymore, and they changed. So not just UK businesses, but all children's education businesses have fallen over in China.
Yeah. What challenges were you faced specifically in China? One of the most complex market in the world.
Absolutely
that would be useful.
One of the bits of advice somebody gave us actually, and it was Rolf, who was our consultant that Farah introduced me to in Germany, he knew a brand that he had helped that had gone into China. And one of the things that he said to me, it sounds a bit horrible actually, but he said, expect to be ripped off, expect to have your brand copied and to be taken away from you. Yeah. That's what he said. So he said, whatever you do, at any point in your investment cycle in that country, always assume it's going to end the next day. So make sure you're on the right side of the investment. You're not owed anything ever. And that really resonated with me. So right from the get-go, everything we set up was money first, service second. Right. So we never, ever lost money in China. We made money, and then when it slowed down and stopped, it slowed down and stopped. Yeah. So that's advice number one. In a place like China, and any country that's got a challenging economic system and government where it's unpredictable, unstable. The Chinese government changed the business structure like that. Loads of businesses fell over. So just make sure you're in the right side of the investment curve is what I would say. So
which is a lot of countries.
It's a lot
and
of
a lot
countries.
Of really good countries. But you've got to take that approach. From South Africa to Brazil 100%. To you can name a load of countries 100%. Where you probably have to think like that.
Yeah, and we did. We had a big upfront check, which was great. But every time, we were going to serve, and again, be straight with everybody. You don't have to say your country's going to fall over, but be very straight on how you're going to go about it. Yeah. So with our master over there, we said, we're going to have to come over and train your teachers. It was built into the system, train your teachers, you'll pay us from there. Like, yeah, great. You'll pay us first. We'll get on the plane and come and train them. But I've said to the team before we're going in, I mean it's in a positive way, operating in America, you need to think it is as alien as operating in China, because culturally it is.
Very different.
Yeah, we speak the same language. It pretty well stops there. Yeah. Culturally, entirely different. Yeah. And, same in Germany. And we went to Germany, Rolf said to us, and this goes back to listen. Trials. So here's a good example. This goes back to listen to your advisors. So my perception of Germany, biggest economy in Europe, everyone's going to be an entrepreneur. They're going to be gangbusters at being an entrepreneur, aren't they? Because, have to be. How do you become the biggest economy in Europe? I said this to you and you were like, I don't think that's going to be the case, Paul, but listen to what Rolf says. Speak to Rolf. Rolf was like, absolutely, the worst place to find an entrepreneur in the world is Germany. Totally conservative, really, really safe. Like,
got to trial it, you've got to prove it.
Yeah. 100% correct. So every country is different. So my other learning, which keeps coming back to the same, is when you do go to a country, is get an advisor for that country. And we, when we went to China, the advice that we got, I didn't need a franchise consultant in terms of this is what you need to do, set up a system. We knew all of that, we'd learned all that lesson. But what I did need was legal. I thought maybe I called you about that, but we needed a lawyer. We needed a good law firm that understood China.
We introduced you to our associate in China, who then introduced you to some lawyers.
Now, sat back where you are now, how do you view China in terms of going out there as water babies and setting up over there? And were you ever called water babies over there?
Yes, we were. So we got it in the end.
Oh, you did get it in the end. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But do you view it as a failure, or do you view it as a learning experience, or do you view it as part of the journey? It is what it is.
All of the above. So my whole stance, just working, is we spend our whole lives working, and why do you run a business? Provide a service, do good for the people, whatever it happens to be, make money, it's going to be right at the top, it's going to be up there somewhere. But the other bit for me is have a good time as well, enjoy it. Yeah, have some fun, have some adventure if your business allows you to do that. So don't be mad, but have some adventure. So we're in this situation where we could give China a punt. We've got some people who were prepared to give it a punt. We've been really straight about how unlikely it was to succeed. They were up for that. That's like doing business in the Wild West. That doesn't come around every day.
Yeah.
Brilliant fun. It was, unbelievably good fun.
Yeah.
I said to the team, and we used to say internally, this lasts 5 years, 10 years or 15 years or 5 minutes. Well, it's 5 minutes we never had.
I always say one of the criteria that I use to assess whether a company is ready for international growth is, and it's something unfortunately you can't do on Zoom. You've got to spend time with the client as we did.
Yeah.
Do they have the stamina to last the journey?
Yeah.
Because the journey is going to be lots of ups, hopefully, but quite a few nosedives.
Yeah.
And if you're going to give up at the point of things just not working out the way we thought, don't touch it.
Yeah.
If you haven't got the stamina to sustain your enthusiasm, your energy, the belief in what you're doing, then international is probably not for you.
I spent my whole working life watching people being told what they couldn't do.
Yeah.
I saw it at school, I saw it in work, why you couldn't go for the next job, why you couldn't follow your ambition. I actually think it's endemic in British society. It drives me potty. People are told what they can't do rather than what they can do. People are put down, not elevated. And I was absolutely determined that when I ran my own business, I knew I would run a business one day. Didn't know it was going to be a baby swimming business. It would be built on completely different values. And I fundamentally believe if you can create an environment where people truly believe they're valued and are allowed to have a go, that means making mistakes, they're allowed to have a go, then what you will find is that people will do extraordinary things, normally over and above their own expectation of themselves. And on the back of people doing extraordinary things, you may have a successful company. And on the back of that, you may make some money. And if you listen to what I said there, it was people first and money was third.
My name is Jane. I'm the Chinese franchise in Xi'an. Well, I know him long time ago, like 8-9 years ago. My first email, the head office, want to be a franchise for China. Before I met him, I thought he's a boring mid-aged white man. And when I meet him in person, he's actually full of passion, very interesting, very warm-hearted. And he's a person who can influence other people as well with lots of positive spirit. Well, I think he just in very difficult time, he always the person who is there to support you like a family, as well as, commercial-wise. They give me lots of advice as well to help me get through the difficult time. I really admire his lifestyle now. So I want to tell him, enjoying your life and keep doing something amazing because life is very long. I hope we all live for 100 years to create some amazing things to infect the other people around us.